Hello everyone, my name is Yoshio and I'm part of the Zero Dinar Investment Group. And I haven't made a video in the last 3 weeks or so. Sadly, I got COVID and I felt bad, right? So now I'm feeling a little bit better, more motivation. I'm not coughing as much. So I decided to make this quick video because a lot of you guys, I noticed that the simple things, sometimes we tend to forget them. And this is one of the main things that in technical analysis, decides whether you make money or not, right? So I am going to be talking about support and resistance points. So to summarize it all up and make it really simple to you guys, support and resistance, you can basically see it as this line right here. I'm providing an example of a support line, right? So support means that the stock tends to stop at a certain point as it's going up and down. And that tends to be an important point because it can either bounce or it can break out of that support line, right? Resistance is the same thing, but instead of having it in the bottom, right, you have it at the top. Uh, as you guys can see these points right here, I'm gonna highlight them for you guys so you guys can see them right here. You can tell that the stock tends to bounce. And we're currently looking at ADMA, and there's a reason why ADMA is pulled up in the charts. I'm going to talk about it as soon as we finish talking about this. But I highlighted all the support points and all the resistance points. Again, support can be seen as a wall, right? The way I explain to my students how support works is that the stock encounters some type of barrier or a wall that won't let the stock progress, or in the opposite end, come back down. So as it's coming down, you guys can see here that ADMA tends to stop right about 2. This is considered a penny stock. Anything under $10 to me is considered a penny stock. So right here, you can clearly see how it started down here and then it went all the way up and then it came back down and it slowly started making a what? A triangle, right? Now the triangle is not complete and we can use this to our advantage to make money. But right now we're specifically talking about support and resistance. How do you find this support and resistance points, right? That's the next question. Well, all you gotta do is pull up your chart and find the patterns, right? So if you see that the stock tends to bounce or tends to stop at that specific area, like right here, as you guys can see, I'm gonna highlight, I missed one right here, we kind of did it too, then that's telling me that the stock is having a hard time crossing to the next level or the next point, right? And again, the same can be applied to resistance. Resistance is the top part that you guys see here, and they're all highlighted with the squares. That means that it's following this pattern and that it's bouncing off the pattern, right? Now, so right here, we can see a mixture of support and resistance and a triangle forming. And again, if you guys want to add more into it, this right here is about to finalize, right? And we're at this bottom section. This is right here, the space that you guys see that's uncompleted. It's called the gap, right? So most stocks, if they follow the pattern that you're currently seeing, they tend to fill the gap and then break out, right? Again, let's review some of this stuff. What's a breakout? A breakout is when a stock gets out of its pattern, for example, getting out of this triangle and creating new highs or creating new lows if it's dropping, right? So it applies both ways, going up and going back down. So it's that simple, guys. All you guys have to do is go back in the time frames and find specific support and resistance points, right? This is kind of like a support and resistance example of a triangle, but can you do that specifically overall with the stock? Yes, you can. So I'm gonna show you guys another example of the most common way you're gonna see support and resistance points. So now we're looking at FSOY. So right here, I specifically only drew 2 lines, right? So you guys can see what I'm talking about. In here, without looking at a pattern or a triangle or a square, whatever you want to, call it, I'm just pointing where my support and resistance points are. Now, so there's smaller support and resistance points that you can also check, right? And they're also important to take into consideration because they can be potentially be your entry and exit points. But for the most part, at least to do my technical analysis in the bigger time frames, we're looking at the daily. For you guys that don't know, we have 5, 15, 1 hour, 4 hours, daily and weekly. If we look at the daily, we can see that FSOY, it's right at its resistance point. Now, resistance is, again, it's the next big move that's about to happen, right? And as you guys can see, it crosses resistance 1, 2, almost 3, 4, and 5 times. Now, if it were to cross above the red line, this resistance is going to, what we want it to turn into potentially a support point, the next support point, right? This is support. I drew another line down here for you guys to see. So if this turns into another support point, that's safe for us to get in calls or buy a position in it, right? Because now the stock is going to tend to stop here and move forward and potentially make a new pattern that's going to be above the red line, right? Right here, we saw how it crossed, but it didn't have enough volume and it came back down, right? Within 3 days, this stock came, again, it bounced all the way back to support, right? And then in here, it kind of like tried getting out, but it didn't quite reach. And as you guys can see, there's several flares, right, that are popping out. So these are waves that are being created as the stock is progressing. And we're back at it again. So it's done it before, it's done it 2 times, and I'm looking for potentially a 3rd time and a much bigger, breakout. So this is another example of how we can use resistance and support, right? You look for those points. And again, I'm going to draw them for you guys or highlight them. Boom. We have another one here. Boom. Another one here. And you just have to pay attention, right? And figure out when this is happening. Again, sometimes you might not see it. Oh, wait, that's not it. Sometimes you might not see this in the smaller time frames, but definitely pay attention to the bigger time frames because they're going to be the ones guiding you in creating the support and resistance lines. And again, I'm going to do it for the top part too. This is also my resistance. And I'm just going to highlight that section for you guys to see what I'm going to be talking about next. Right? So we're looking at this specific section right here. This is called the breakout point. That means that we want the stock to break out. And if it doesn't, that's fine. It's not what we want. It's what the market gives us, right? So if this tends to bounce, if it comes back down this way, we can also potentially short the position. So in here, this candle is called a doji candle. What does that mean? Well, you have to go over your candles and your candle names. But this one is basically telling us that it's 50-50. It's 50% buyers, 50% sellers. It's right in the middle. So it hasn't made a decision yet as to what's going to happen next. So what do we have to do? We wait. We wait and we wait for confirmation. Confirmation is key here. If we make sure that this stock breaks out and this red line becomes its new support, then we're going to get calls. If this bounces back down, it comes down this way, then we're going to get puts. And we know where that's potentially going to stop, right? Right here at our support point, so you can go both ways and you can potentially make money following both things. But again, you have to be patient and you react to what the market's giving you. It's not what you want. I want freaking calls, but it doesn't matter, right? Or I might want puts. It doesn't matter because it can always go against you and you might lose money for having that early entry that you thought was going to give you some money or make you some money because the stock was potentially going to go up or it was going to potentially going to go down, and now you're stuck in a position that now you're going to have to get out of, because if you continue, if you know where it's going, right? If it failed to break out and it came back down, it's going to continue to potentially go back down until it reaches its next support point. And it's that simple, guys. Support and resistance. You find your points, you look at all the time frames, not just the daily or the weekly, but they can give you similar patterns. As you guys can see here, this is the weekly, and I'm getting the same thing. Look, it's kind of like a more clear chart that provides this information, right? You can look at smaller time frames too, and they also provide a similar picture. If you drew good support and resistance points, believe me, your timeframes won't matter because they are going to show a similar picture. And if you get confirmation from several timeframes showing you the same picture within those support and resistance points, odds are that they're pretty good points and that stock is going to react to them, right? So now we're looking at FSOY. So I'm just going to give you guys two big ones for this week. FSOY might break out. So if it does, you guys already know what to do. Buy. If FSOY comes back down out of this resistance point, then you can also short the position, right? We are also looking at ADMA. That was our first example. And in here, we're waiting for it to fill the gap. So if it goes above, right, its support point that we see here, right? Well, it's kind of like its resistance point right now. Remember, when it's in the bottom, it's considered as resistance. Above it, it's considered as support. So if it crosses, I will go based off this EMA. As you guys can see, I use EMAs for to explain to you guys my entry points. If it crosses 227, perfect. I'll probably get a position and hold it until it kind of fills the gap, 75% of it, 80% of it, and then get out. Make my quick money right here, filling the gap. And I wrote it right there for you guys to see. You filled the gap. Again, it's just following resistance and support points. And in this specific stock, we're also looking at a triangle. And lastly, we're going to look at CPRX. CPRX was our winner last month. We made some money because we followed the same instructions that I'm giving you guys right now. And as you guys can see, it created a nice support here, and then it started coming back up. Right now, this blue line that you guys see right here is called 200 EMA, which is a really important EMA. This right here, typically when a stock crosses it, it tends to do a large move or it tends to do a large bounce, right? In here, it looks like 200 EMA became its new support. Again, we're using the same keywords, support and resistance. Support to me is like now there's a wall here that's preventing this stock from coming back down. And on top of that, if we look at my indicator right here, it's telling me that the TTM switch is about to happen, right? But then you got to pay attention to everything. Indicators is not everything, right? If you look down here, you see that the indicator, this other indicator is telling me that there's a potentially a sell, signal popping out. But I understand why this happened because the stock tried breaking out, as you guys can see, and it fell. It fell to break out. So it came back down. But it didn't go all the way back down to its support. It came back down to 200 EMA, which means that it might try to retest. What does that mean? It might try to do this again, come back out, and potentially break out, and we can capitalize on it, right? So it's this simple, guys. Today we talked about resistance and support points, and we can always use them to capitalize off of it. Again, my name is Yoshio, and I'm part of the Zero Dinero Investment Group from Los Angeles, just recovered from COVID, and I make videos that talk about technical analysis, stocks, and finance, right? So if you're interested and you like what you see, don't forget to like, and subscribe to our channel.